today, helping me run this webinar. And then we have Sheila Gallagher, also from the Career Development Center, and she will be watching the chat feature today. So if you have questions, we encourage you to use the chat feature to ask questions of any of the panelists. And if you could, right now in the chat feature, maybe tell us what major you are, if you're a student, or if you're a staff member, what program you're from, or if you're a faculty member, what department you're joining us from. That would be great today as well. So I think I'll start with having our panelists, and I'll call on you kind of individually. I'd like them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves, where they're working, what their majors were, and what they're doing now. So Peter, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start ahead. Well, hello everyone. It's Peter Vang. As Debbie already mentioned, I'm a Fresno State alumni as well. I graduated in 2016. My major was in business administration with the option of computer information systems. I also hold a master's degree in cybersecurity, where I obtained from Bellevue University in Omaha, Nebraska. I do also hold some cybersecurity and IT certifications from IISC Square, or International Information Systems Security Certifications Consortium, such as the name of the certification is SSCP, which stands for Security Systems Certified Professional. And I also have another security certification from CompTIA, which is Security Plus. And I have other certifications, many more from ITIL, and then also Microsoft related certifications too as well. Currently, I'm working as a IT security engineer for a family-owned Mexican frozen food company called Ruiz Foods Products, which is located in Dinuba, California. We're a company that's pretty much all over the United States. And my role as an IT security engineer, I'm pretty much responsible for protecting the organization's IT systems, networks, and their information from cyber threats. So that's just a little bit about what my role consists of. And I also do part-time teaching at Fresno State as a cybersecurity lecturer and instructor as well.
Very good. Welcome. Thank you, Peter. Since we're in cybersecurity, let's add John in next. Tell us about your background, John.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Camilla. I graduated from Fresno State in 2015. Same as Peter, the business administration major with an emphasis in computer information systems. Also hold a master's degree in cybersecurity from the University of Rhode Island. Some of the certifications I hold are the Security Plus, the CISSP, and the OSCP, which is like a penetration tester certification. My role right now, I'm working with Northrop Grumman, who's a defense contracting company, and I work as a cyber security system administrator, which is kind of a blended role between systems administration and cybersecurity. It's in the name. So that kind of means I'm responsible for upkeeping the infrastructure that our team works on, we develop on, and also keeping it secure and making sure that the infrastructure at our customer sites are also secured and able to be accredited.
Thank you very much. Happy to have you and Peter here representing cybersecurity as a huge emerging career. I think COVID has opened the door.
Definitely is.
Lots with cybersecurity. So thank you for being here. Next, we're going to move on to social media, and we have Sierra and Cassie. Sierra, you want to start?
Sure. So, hey everyone, my name's Sierra. I graduated, well, I was a student of the MCJ department and the kinesiology department at Fresno State. My bachelor's degrees are in public relations and sport administration. So I'm still in the current role that I got after graduating college in December of 2018, which is a marketing coordinator at BK Lighting, which is a manufacturing company in Madera. And then I'm also venturing into freelance. I am a freelance PR and development assistant for the Central California Women's Conference. So a lot of what I do is in both roles is social media. Excellent, thank you. And Cassie?
Hi everyone, I'm Cassie. I graduated from Fresno State in 2015 within kinesiology sports administration. And I'm currently working on my master's in hospitality with UNLV. So right now with my career, it's a little crazy with COVID because I work with ASM Global, which is previously SMG, as the director of sales and marketing for 5 venues in Stockton: an arena, a theater, a minor league baseball field, a marina, and an ice rink. So right now all the buildings are closed because of COVID. So that career is a little bit on hold right now. So I'm currently working for a small family-owned business, helping them to launch their social media and launch some marketing tactics right now. So that's kind of my life right now, is my master's and then helping out a small business.
Yeah, it's interesting. You all graduated in some pretty decent economies, and how everything has changed now, and how your work lives have adjusted just within the last less than a year now. It's pretty interesting to watch. The other area that's represented today is Skylar and Mike are from environmental science. Skylar, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Skylar. I graduated in December 2018 with a degree in environmental science, and I'm also part of the SNCChem Honors College. Now I'm working as an environmental planner at Caltrans and also as a grant writer.
Very good. And Mike, you're in a whole different field of environmental science.
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet. Nice kind of be here. It's pretty cool to be a part of this, and so thank you. My name is Mike Grill. I currently am classified as an environmental scientist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Practically, I'm a fish biologist. Currently, I'm studying adult spring run Chinook salmon in the San Joaquin River, the adult movement and holding using acoustic telemetry. I completed my bachelor's degree in 2012, and just recently completed my master's degree there from Fresno State this last spring. Yeah.
Very good. And what was your master's in, Mike, that you just got?
My master's was in biology. I studied the thermal tolerances of embryos, Chinook salmon embryos.
Very good. So are the wildfires impacting your job at all?
From a field standpoint, yes. So we kind of have both COVID and the wildfires impacting our field activities. We have to limit our exposure and stuff. So.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So Sheila, do we have kind of on the chat feature, do we have an indication of who some of our majors are watching today?
We sure do. We've got a variety of majors today. We've got biology, history, we've got political science, MCJ, communications, plant health, business, biochemistry, you name it, it's there. We even have a criminology, and the dean, Dr. Meyer from the College of Science and Math, I just noticed is with us today. So we've got a great group.
Thank you, Sheila. That's great to know. Welcome, everybody. So we're missing one of our emerging careers, and it's ironic that they're both in the wine and beer industry. Well, actually, they're both in the wine industry. So we had a biology major who is a lab technician chemist, and we had an accounting major who's at E&J Gallo, and both of them were not able to make it last minute. I know one in particular, the biology major in the lab, said their hours changed today because a bunch of grapes just came in. So they're in the heart of harvest right now. So it's kind of like accounting season, you know, for an accountant right now in the wine industry. So unfortunately, I'm sorry if you're a science or a business major and wanted to hear their story, but the good news is we have career counselors for all the colleges. And if you want to hear more about these emerging careers within your college and major, I really highly advise you to reach out to the Career Development Center. And Sheila in the chat feature can put a phone number and some contact information on how you might get a hold of our office. So I'm going to pose some questions today, and just curious, by raise of hands right now, did any of the 6 of you participate in an extracurricular activity while you went to Fresno State? Skylar, you want to start? What did you get involved in?
For extracurricular activities, so I think the two most important thing for me was the sustainability club and the entrepreneurship mentor program, EMP, because I get to meet a lot of people with the same interests with me and learning a little bit about starting a business, entrepreneurship, and most importantly, meeting a lot of my mentors through the two clubs, and they ended up writing me like recommendation letters, sending me to conferences, and two became my employers.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So great, good networking there. That's really great. Anyone else join a club or organization while you were going to college? John, did you?
I did. I was a member of Beta Alpha Psi, which is a professional fraternity for accountants, finance
Yes.
majors, and IT students. So they didn't seem like we had a lot of representation in the IT field from the students that participated, but there were opportunities. Like I think Meet the Professionals is tonight. A lot of the big four accounting firms do hire IT and cyber professionals and students.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, that sometimes, we think of the accounting field, but there are many S and CIS computer science majors employed in the accounting field. So
Well,
how interesting that you joined Beta Alpha.
A lot of them do
Excellent.
consulting services, so cybersecurity is right in there.
That makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
Anyone else, a club or organization? Did anyone do an internship? Yeah, Cassie, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I worked with the Fresno State Athletics Department. So I was in their marketing department, working all the games, football, basketball, volleyball. And so my job within that was with all the in-game promotions that were going on, and then posting on social media and just getting people to interact. So it ended up being extremely useful to me, learning about all of that, especially when at the arena we hosted the NCAA women's basketball tournament. And I was able to use everything from that internship for that. So it worked out great.
And I would think that experience with that internship was something really good to get on your resume when it came to looking for jobs, right?
Oh yeah, it even helped me, to get the internship I got after to get my degree. So it helped.
Good example. Peter, how about you? Did you do an internship too?
I did. I got an internship with the current employer that I'm currently with right now. So I think from what I got of it was I got a lot of practical experience and work real life scenarios in terms of, applying the skills that we learned in our coursework and our business classes. So got to really apply all of those knowledges and also gain a lot of skills from the internship too as well. So I've been, ever since the internship, I've been here ever since. So it was a good experience.
Yeah, and that internship, Peter, if I remember, was that in did you do quality control? Is that how you started?
It was just strictly help desk, IT help desk. I mean, there was some quality control tasks and related duties or responsibilities that I was in charge of, but for the most part, it was mostly just basic IT help desk support for the entire organization.
Yeah, that's a good point that you make is when students make that leap from getting their degree to that first destination job, what are some entry level, because a lot of students come to our office and ask, hey, what's an entry level job for this career? So help desk, I think that's a really good point that you make. That's how sometimes you get started in industry.
Right.
Did anyone else do an internship? I thought I saw another hand. Skylar, how about you?
I did an internship with the U.S. Forest Service one summer, and then the next one I did with my employer, which is Caltrans. And I think that just learning about the processes and getting to know the partners that we work with and the team in general helped me a lot in landing the job in the interview.
Okay, very good. And then who else Sierra, did you have your hand up too? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my internship was actually with the Central California Women's Conference. So I interned with them for the year, and then the next year volunteered because it's an annual conference, and then was asked to work freelance for Betsy Hayes, who's the chair of the MCJ department, and worked closely with the Women's Conference as well. So it definitely helped, and it was nice to be able to get some experience with some nonprofit work.
And when you interviewed for jobs, did you find that employers really liked that you had done an internship? What was kind of your experience with that?
Yeah, because it definitely, well, like for the role that I'm in now, it had a lot to do with social media, and I did a lot of social media for the women's conference. So it did help having a lot of that experience. And then also, you know, working with the people that I do, it was kind of it did help boost for sure.
Great. Well, I think in summary, we would tell our audience out there how important internships are then to, you know, your career development and trying to figure out. Mike, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I kind of something on the same lines. I didn't pursue or have the opportunity or take the opportunity for an internship, but I think much of what everybody else gained in their experience, I gained through participating in a grant that was awarded to one of my advisors. That I gained a lot of the same experiences, the contacts and the personal connections with people outside the university working in the field. And that came through working in a lab and a grant that was awarded. So I guess kind of on that same path there.
Absolutely. I was going to add that. Did anyone do research or experience with a grant? And of course, with the sciences, that would make so much sense. Skylar, did you do any research too? I'm sure.
I have a question for Mike. Was it Steve Blumenschein? It
Yes.
was your, oh my gosh, you still work with him too. For a little bit. I love him.
Yeah, very good.
Definite connection between majors here going on, which is great. Sheila's asking me right now in the chat feature, students are asking for your contact information. So panelists, if you wouldn't mind in the chat feature, if you're willing to have students contact you via email or even faculty, they love to hear your story as well. If you could just type in your email or how you would like to be contacted. Mike, I wanna ask you a question related to, because you work for the state of California, what was that like? It's a different process to really apply, and it's a long process to apply for jobs with the state of California, right? And what was that process like for you?
I'd say the process itself is not lengthy if you start prior to the night the applications due, right? It's really the bulk of the work involves filling out an employee profile with the state and getting that set up. From then on, it was relatively easy for me to apply for jobs and you know, uploading all my necessary documents. That was relatively quick.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a little bit of a journey.
Yeah, and patience, right? Lots of patience.
Lots of patience.
Lots of patience. Did any of you volunteer while you were a student at Fresno State? Yes. Do you think, what did that do for you as far as trying to figure out your career path, where you wanted to go, where to go first destination? Did that impact you in any way? Go ahead, Skylar.
I think Sarah was first. So I volunteered with the it's called LCJA, the Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. They're a nonprofit working in the Central Valley. They help build a lot of water projects and other projects as well, but I worked with a water specialist. And I helped them with GIS and with just reading through some of the environmental documents and see what the impact on disadvantaged communities would be. And I think that helped me put the GIS knowledge I learned in class into practice. And it shows me that, you know, like there are a lot of cool things going on in the nonprofit section, but since I don't speak Spanish, I'm at kind of a disadvantage. So when I got to my career, it helped me narrow down a little bit on what I can do.
Great, thank you. How about you, Sierra?
Yeah, I actually, in the MCJ department, we had a lot of service learning opportunities. I think like 3 or 4 that I had to do, and then also one in the marketing department when I took a class through there. So it was great to be able to work with local nonprofits, and really it opened my eyes to the opportunities that are available in the nonprofit sector. I did wish I got more internships with the corporate world now that I'm here. It's been a journey, but I think it would have prepared me a little bit more for what to expect. But the nonprofit world is just, it's so beneficial, and it's great to see how how they're all different and how they work together. So it does help for sure.
Excellent. Anyone else volunteerism? Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would say that is a huge component to what helped me get to this career. And a lot of it, like Sierra, I think just said, the service learning projects that were initiated through some of my labs, they put me in contact with many of the biologists that I work with today. And in reality, it allowed me to survey sort of a broad spectrum of jobs and duties within those jobs. And so I feel like I was able to narrow down what I wanted to do, what I wanted to pursue. And that allowed me to be a little more efficient in selecting classes and connecting with professors and research opportunities. And it really afforded a lot of different things for me. And so it's tough, but I really looked at it too as almost a component to my academic career, as education outside of the academic environment, and it really filled some gaps for me that I still reap the benefits of today.
You guys could be you could be poster people of Fresno State and all the applied and all the extracurricular experiences that you all took advantage of, and it sounds like it really paid off, because I think it is a big wide world out there. There's so many opportunities. We have a lot of students saying to us, with COVID, there are no jobs. There are jobs, but you kind of have to uncover a few rocks to get to those. And I think this volunteering, internships, networking, clubs, organizations, I guess my question would be, it's always kind of fun to look backwards on your life. Sometimes we want to look forwards, but in looking backwards, if you could be your younger self again, entering college, would have you done anything any differently? Would have you done more, done less, got involved in something? John, how about with cybersecurity? Are there things you wish you would have done?
Definitely. The field's always evolving quickly. And, when I was a student, I focused a lot on academics, on certifications, and then later on, the master's degree. A lot of that knowledge I gained was conceptual. So when I was in school, it would have been great if I would have taken the initiative on myself to start some side projects, maybe build a home lab where, I'm managing servers at home and things like that, and really just, build that foundational knowledge, the technical knowledge.
For your certifications, how did you seek those out? Because were you looking at job descriptions and saw, oh wow, it's required? How did you know where to go and what certifications you were going to need?
Yeah, so the Security Plus was my golden ticket, really. I mean, I got that, I think it was my senior year of my bachelor degree. A lot of the jobs for the defense contractors in the IT field require the Security Plus because it's actually a Defense Department or Department of Defense requirement to be able to work on a lot of these systems. So if you have that certification, a lot of these employers will just, they'll give you an offer based off of that.
Got it. Okay, good to know. Peter, how about you? What did you do it all right, or is there any regrets? Anything? Oh, I wish I would have done this.
No, I kind of like John. I think I'm kind of in the same boat as John. I think we had different priorities when we were college students, and it wasn't until we were in our working a job or in our current career that we started thinking about we could have done this back when we were still college students. So like John, I think going back, if I were to do it all over again, or if I were to do it differently in college, definitely just building that foundation or baseline and getting more practical experience. Because when we talk about employers, what they're looking for is they're not looking for 5 to 10 years experience. I mean, there's discussions around that, but I think what they're looking for is that you have a foundation that you built and that you invested in yourself. So I think that's very important in cybersecurity. And as John had pointed out, that cybersecurity is always changing. So you want to make sure that you have the right skill sets, or at least the basics, when you're coming into that type of career. So I mean, like John, yeah, those are the things that I would have done differently, or if I were to go back, I would do differently.
You're right, though. Technology changes. I mean, in 4 months, it's outdated, right? And it's got, so you're lifelong learners, as everyone on screen is, right? We don't just get our degree and finish education. The education is now lifelong, and things will rapidly change. So that's a really good point. Sierra, any regrets? Anything you should have done, could have done?
I think it ultimately just, I would have been more ambitious with internships and really getting myself out there and going to the, like, signing up for clubs and doing more extracurricular things like that, because I was very focused on just what I needed to get done in college. And I was super busy working like 2 to 3 jobs at a time sometimes and going to school full time. So it was definitely challenging. And I probably was just like, no, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And I think I would have opened my horizons more and got a little more involved. So I think that's my advice. Like, definitely don't pass up your opportunities.
Good. Well said. Very well said. By raise of hands, how many of you worked while you were going to school, while you were at Fresno State? Yeah. So those of you in the audience, it's very, very common that students are working and going to school at the same time. And it's hard because we're all telling you, oh, get involved in this and get involved in that. It's hard. It's a real balancing act, right?
Right.
Sometimes students have more than one job. So good to see that all of you did work. Cassie, how about you? Anything you would have done differently?
I probably would have invested more time into learning about graphic design. It's something I kind of overlooked going into marketing, and the one thing that I use every single day. And so ended up after college having to take a bunch of online classes, and YouTube was probably my best friend, so that I could just kind of self-teach myself. So that's one thing that if I could go back, I would have invested a lot of time in that.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting today, features like LinkedIn Learning that allow you to do extra learning kind of on the side. There's so much online education now, and I don't know how many of you are taking advantage of that to add to what your base that you already have, and now your work experience, and you keep layering it on. How about Skylar? How about, would have you done anything any differently?
So one most important thing is I would do more informational interviews, which is like taking someone out for coffee, someone that's further along in their career in the path I want to go, and just for 20, 30 minutes, and ask them about what their job involves, what their typical day is like, and how they got to where they are. And one more thing is I would try to finish more Coursera courses I started.
Okay, very good. Interesting that she says that about informational interviews. I found all of these panelists through LinkedIn. I didn't know any of them. I was a faculty member in the business school for 25 years, but these are not my former students. I didn't know them. I just started looking for alums, and they answered like within minutes, like, I'll do it. You know, thank you. You guys are just awesome. But so students out in the audience, these individuals are all on LinkedIn, and I'll bet they'd be open for a 15 to 20 minute chat, either on the phone or by Zoom. Or I always think the best way to learn is from somebody who's on the path you want to be on, right? All of you are such great examples of graduates from Fresno State. Mike, you did a lot. Is there anything that you wish you would have added to the mix?
I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? I guess just starting earlier. I think for me, out of high school, that pre-programmed mentality of, you know, take the test, pass the test, graduate, it was familiar to me. And so I translated that into my college career, and college being just a very different environment. I would have spent more time at the office hours of my professors, talking, learning their research interests. I mean, they're a wealth of information. And I think I would have started that a little earlier than I did.
Interesting. Yeah, and students out there today, we know that we're, you know, virtual right now, but professors are doing, just like our office, we're doing Zoom appointments, and they're working actually quite smoothly because of the distance sometimes between us. So getting to know your faculty members, because your faculty have connections in industry as well. So point well taken, Mike. I think, Sheila, you're chatting to me. There are some questions
Right, there are. Skylar, there's a question out here for you. So how helpful was the GIS certificate and what fields would you recommend it for? And then there's a question for Mike. Do you think is the best way to enter the field? How did you end up working for the U.S. Forest Service?
So Skylar, the first one was on GIS and where that might be useful.
Okay, so in my current job, I don't have to use GIS a lot because we have specialists that work with that. But it definitely will help you stand out more when applying for jobs. And especially, I think, in smaller companies or startup where one person has to take on many different roles, it would be definitely helpful.
Great. And Mike, the question was what was it again, Sheila? How did he get into state of California Fish and Game?
It was, what do you think the best way to enter the field would be, and how did you end up working for the U.S. Forest Service?
Fish and wildlife.
Fish and wildlife.
Yeah, it's with Fish and Wildlife, but no big deal. I think the process, in my opinion, would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
What I would highly recommend is finding somebody within, whether it be state or federal agency, or even in the academic sector, that is doing something that you're interested in, and attach yourself to them, talk to them, send them an email, contact them. I know for myself as a field biologist, I've taken other students out in the field with me, and they've done my job with me. And then when you show up at that interview that says, have you ever done X, Y, and Z? You can say, yeah, I've done X, Y, and Z with so-and-so. And so if you're Forest Service minded, there's a number of graduates from CSU Fresno that work within Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park. A great terrestrial biologist works there. I would contact them, just send them an email. If you don't hear back, don't be offended and don't get discouraged. Keep doing it. Don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people. As I can only speak as myself as a biologist, I can speak for a very long time about the things that I'm passionate about and that I study. So anybody that's willing to listen is always welcome. So
love it.
just try.
I love it. Very good. So that brings me to another question. John, how did you find that first job? Because you worked for someone else before Northrop, didn't you?
Right. Yeah, I worked for Raytheon, which is another defense contractor.
So was that your first job after grad school or undergrad? How did you get going in your career? What was your first job and how did you get there?
So I guess technically my first job in the IT industry was at Fresno State for the athletics department. So I was an IT admin for them. There are other opportunities. I know some of my other colleagues worked for the IT department for Fresno State itself. But after that, like I said, I obtained the Security Plus certification, and then I just applied everywhere.
Wow.
I applied all across the country, cast a wide net, and finally ended up with Raytheon because they were impressed by the one certification. So I got my first position. I was a systems administrator with Raytheon in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
So you moved back east.
I did.
Wow, that's a big.
I'm from the East Coast, but I moved from the East Coast to Fresno to go to Fresno State to California and then back, and now I'm back here.
I like what you said, and we often share that with students as well, especially right now with the pandemic and unemployment is higher than certainly it was a year ago. I love what you just said. You said you casted a wide net in your job search.
Right.
And what we tell students, even the state of California, like right now, LA actually has a higher unemployment rate than Fresno County does. The big metropolitan areas are suffering more in COVID and the pandemic and everything than the smaller areas like Fresno. So sometimes you have to go outside the state of California.
Also, a lot of companies are opening up positions that weren't previously remote, and now they are. If it doesn't say remote, I would say just apply and ask. I mean,
That's an excellent point as well, because a lot of them are open to remote work. So you could work for an East Coast company, but in California and stay at home. That's a
right.
really good point. Peter, you did an internship with Ruiz Foods, and that led to your first job, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I had applied through on-campus resources like from the Craig School of Business, Synergy. So that was really helpful. And then Fresno State also has like a lot of job postings as well. So just got to do a lot of searching. But like John, I applied everywhere too. But I think the difference that I had between me and John was he had obtained certifications prior to applying for jobs. But for me, it was just more like having conceptual knowledge and some little experience. Well, it was that with that it was a little bit more challenging. But I think with the internship that really helped. That did land me a lot more interviews for sure.
yeah,
But those are the resources that I'd use.
that practical work experience, I'm sure, gave you the added edge. How about Sierra and Cassie? How do you get started in? And I know our panel was going to have esports as well. I think, Cassie, we had talked a little bit about esports on our chatting. Are you actually doing any esports right now? I'm going to kind of digress here a minute.
I mean, prior to COVID, I was part of a couple of conferences and conversations about hosting some esport events and some video game events. So that was something that was definitely on the horizon, and a huge growing industry of people actually paying tickets to watch other people play video games. So which was just crazy concept to me, but it was just very interesting to learn about. But since COVID hit, it's kind of gone quiet, but it's definitely something I'm interested in for the future.
Yeah, I don't know if many of you on the panel know Fresno State now has an esports team that competes nationally. That's pretty cool, huh? So, Cassie, how did you land your first job after graduation? What was kind of your strategy for finding a job, and where did you look for a job?
So for me, it all started at Fresno State. So when I was taking a rep class, we had to actually pick a venue and interview a general manager. And so everyone else in the class was really picking like these really big stadiums and venues. And I decided to keep it small. And I went to Stockton Arena because I thought I had a better chance of actually meeting someone face to face. I took that interview with them and then stayed in touch and asked them if they had any internships available. So then my last semester, we had to do a 12-unit internship for graduation. So I ended up interning at the Stockton Arena. And 2 months into my internship, they actually offered me a job there as the marketing coordinator. And I just worked my way up from there. So it really just all started from an assignment for a class. And then I just kept building up my network.
I think you're all demonstrating boldness. Dr. Castro always says, to be bold. I'm hearing a lot of boldness in this panel, and it's paying off with these great jobs. Sierra, how about you? How did you get started at BK Lighting?
It's a pretty unique story, actually. I definitely started applying same as everybody else. I applied everywhere. All over the state of California. I kind of wanted to stay here, and I just wasn't coming up with anything. I went on several interviews, and every time I thought I nailed it, it was a no. So it was discouraging at first, but actually the opportunity for BK Lighting came through the women's conference. I worked with someone, I never met her, but she was the graphic design artist for the women's conference. And so there were a lot of times where I had to interact with her via email. And she was impressed with my responsiveness and professionalism, my writing skills, and the few months later, she had to put together a marketing team at BK Lighting. She became my manager. And there was a couple of other candidates that she was looking at, but she was really interested in asking me to apply and interview with her. So I did, and that's just kind of where I ended up. It was a great connection to have. And so from that, I just took, always pay attention to your first impression and who you're talking to. You never know who's watching you and who might be interested in offering you a job.
Yeah, very good. That's a perfect example of the power of networking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the connections you made there. Mike, how do you think your research, your connections with faculty, how did you go about that, first landing your first destination?
Yeah, so I'd say a lot of that began with those the service learning projects that were independent research projects, and then plugging in with the the Recreational Impact Study grant on the San Joaquin River. So the winter of 2011 there, I took a scientific aid position working with the department on the San Joaquin River. And so that was sort of the genesis of a lot of my career and how it unfolded. Yeah, and a lot of it was stemmed from the research and plugging in early with the faculty and their connections, and also learning how they networked within the arena that I was looking to get into. Because I think each of those environments is somewhat unique in how people connect and work and the ebb and flow. And so I think paying attention to that and learning from, my advisor, Steve Blumenshine, and other professors as well too. I was so appreciative of the staff in the biology department. Yeah.
I think we have Sheila, do we have the dean, or Alita is the dean of the College of Science and Math participating today? That's good for you, Mike. I'm sure he's going to appreciate hearing that if Dr. Meyer's out there, I think, today in our audience. Yay. So kudos to the College of Science and Mathematics there. That's some big praise there. Skylar, how about you? Oh, he said it's great to hear. Thanks for sharing.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Dean.
So for me, it's kind of a more detour path than the others, I guess, because I'm an international student, and so our visa process is a little bit different. So after graduation, we would have 1 to 3 years working on our student visa before we have to change to something else. So my first job out of college was grant writing with one of my old professors. Actually, he knew me through his class, and he knew that I had decent writing skills. The next one was with the WET Center, or Water, Energy, and Technology Center, right on Barstow. It's a startup incubator that works with water, agriculture technology that can be implemented in the Central Valley to help save energy. And then I moved on to Caltrans. I knew them first through an internship and still kept in touch with my old supervisors and my colleagues. So one of them PM'd me one day and said there's an open position. So I went through the application process for it. And there's this link for applying for jobs on Caltrans I'm gonna share with you. And then after that, I came back to being a grant writer, and now I'm coming back to Caltrans. So it's kind of a zigzag line. Also, there are a lot of organizations that work in environmental science I wanted to share with you. I follow their websites, also their LinkedIn, and once in a while there would be job openings. And the plus of this is I get to read about their news, which talks a lot about what the priorities are, what they're working on right now, and yeah.
And you're going to share those in the chat? You're going to share those, Skylar, in the chat?
Yes, I just shared them in the chat. Okay,
very helpful to our environmental science students on board listening today. Very good. Okay, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a tougher one now. So in giving advice to our audience of students and maybe even faculty that are listening as well, what skill sets do college students really need today? So I realize there's certifications and there's very industry specific. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm more looking for, in order to survive in today's very rapidly changing workplace, what skill sets do you really need in order to survive? Maybe and you didn't learn those in college necessarily, or maybe you did, but what skills do you think students should really work on honing in before they graduate? Peter, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I can start. I think from a cybersecurity perspective, or our career, John and I's career is having, I think for me is, besides all the technical skills that you need, I think at the end of the day, is what sets you apart from the other folks that are apply for the same job is employers will essentially look for you, what type of person you are, and mostly they'll look at your interpersonal skills or your soft skills. So when you talk about those types of skills, some of the skills that they'll look for is, do you have aptitude to learn, new things or new technologies? Are you able to adapt to, ever-changing work environments, and are you a problem solver? And then other skills such as like teamwork, communication, because for me, I work in a business organization, so I need to be able to communicate and understand, different team members from various departments. So I think having listening and communication skills is very important too as well. and then maintaining a level of professionalism when you communicate with those different departments is very desirable and valuable too. So those are the things that I will focus on. Coming from a very technical background, those are the skills that I would, hone in on when you're still in college or before you start looking for a job.
Very good. John, would you add anything to that?
No, I agree with Peter. I think the interpersonal skills is kind of underrated. I mean, if you can solve an incredibly complex technical problem, that's great. If you can't explain to management why that problem caused 2 hours of downtime, it's not as great. You have to be able to articulate a lot of these problems and how you solve them, because it really helps your team shine at the end of the day if management understands the problem and the solution.
Yeah, you mentioned team.
Right. Yeah,
team too.
Right. And in addition to that, just basic Linux, Windows administration skills, maybe some scripting. I know Python is a pretty hot commodity right now. Networking. That's all. I mean, if you just, I don't know, go like an inch deep or an inch deep, mile wide, you'll probably be pretty suited.
Okay, great. Sierra and Cassie, kind of in the social media arena, Sierra, in any particular skill sets that you really think students in that industry need?
Yeah, I think going off of what Peter and John said, I think the communication and writing skills really take you far, and they're skills that are just never going to go out of style. No matter what major you're in college, you're always asked to write something. You're always asked to present something. So really polishing that, it can help you stand out in the application process, in your actual role, when you're going into an interview. I just think that those are really the key components to what you need.
Great. Cassie, would you add anything to that?
Yes, I'd mimic what Sierra just said about writing skills. That's like the number one thing I tell any interns that I have working with me is perfecting your writing skills, because you use that in emails, you use it in social media, you use it in anything that you do. And then also, just to add to it, is to really just perfect your communication and networking skills. One thing, at least within my industry, is it's really about who you know, and don't burn any bridges. Just make sure you're very good at keeping in contact with people. I know for me, it was even keeping in contact with past people within Fresno State. I know when I got into the position where I was then hiring for my department, I reached out to people I went to school with at Fresno State and hired them. So it's just like keeping good contact with people, because it's going to come in handy.
Cassie, while I have you online, someone's asking in the question and the answer box. So you're a kinesiology major, but you're working in social media, and they're trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, so I mean, in sports administration, which kind of falls into the entire business side of sport. So for me, I went into it wanting to work with a sports team, and then I fell in love with the entertainment side of everything. So where I'm working now, it's not only entertainment events, the concerts and Disney on Ice and all that fun stuff, but it's also the sports side. So working with an AHL hockey team and a minor league baseball team. So social media falls into everything, not only managing it from a venue standpoint, but also for the teams and selling tickets. Social media comes in handy for all of that.
Makes sense. Yeah, perfect tie over, really. Skylar and Mike, how about you? Skill sets that you think students really should be thinking about right now before they graduate, as they go out and do their job searching in the future?
Mike, you want to go first? Because I have like 3.
Go for it.
Okay, so the first skills that I would like to build more is to be able to work better in a team. For me, my first reaction to having a difficult assignment is just to solve it myself. So read a lot and try to figure it out by myself. So the result of that is my first week at work, there's just so much to read and absorb in. I just put my headphones on and sit in front of the screen for like 5 hours straight. And my supervisor saw it and was very concerned about me. So she encouraged me to just get up and have lunch with people, talk with people, and that can help me, get there a lot faster. And that was true because the people that were working with me started like many years earlier, and they just have a lot to share. And all I needed to was to ask them to share it with me. So working in a team is definitely a very essential skills. The second one is probably like to stand up for yourself, either in class or in a working environment or in your personal life. For me, there was this one time where we relied on a partner's information that wasn't correct. I can't go into the specifics, but it would have been better for us to either have an agreement with them, even when it's not like an official signed agreement, or to come up with a plan B or plan C to fall into, so we don't have to scramble everything at the last minute and redesign the whole project before it's due. So definitely like stand up for yourself. One of the things that I really like from my mentors is he said, trust people, but verify. So you always trust that they come to the table with good intentions, but you don't rely on it. You don't take it for granted so that you're in, had the shorter end of the stick in the end. And then the third skill that I think was helpful for me is to stay balanced when things get a little bit difficult. So there were definitely the jobs I have had and have right now is like very interesting. There's so much to learn, and it definitely aligns with where I want to be in the future. But there are just days where you wake up kind of empty and you're like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? So it's important to kind of go back to the drawing board and see what your goals are, where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and see how what you're doing is helpful to yourself, to other people, and get recharged.
I think I'll hire you all as career developers. You're doing a really good job on giving advice. Skylar, there is a question about how do you get a job with Caltrans? Somebody's asking in the question box.
Sure. So we mentioned it before, but I first interned with them in my 3rd year, I think. So I applied to them, they gave me a call, we did an internship for 2.5 months. And then after that, I kept in touch with some of my colleagues. And then one of them reached out to me one day and said, there's an open position. So I went up to the website and submit I think it's Cal Careers application, and then did an online test that just kind of assess your skills in different areas, both soft skills and technical. And then once you pass that test, you pass a certain score, you get on a list for eligible jobs. So whenever there's a good job open, you would be notified on Cal Careers. So I went for an interview, and my internship came in really handy because they ask a lot about the processes that's involved in the job, and that becomes very simple when you've done it before. So that's how I landed it.
Yeah, it sounds like a longer process like Mike went through with the state of California, and I'm sure, John, you did too with the Department of Defense. You had to go through a lot of screening, didn't you?
Yes, I had to obtain a security clearance, which I don't know if anyone knows, but it can take a year or longer.
I've heard that. You're verifying it now. I've heard that. It's a really, you got to be a really patient person for that.
Right.
Yeah. Mike, everybody's probably stolen all the skills that you were going to mention here. You've got the tough, but I bet you've got some more. Any skills that you would share?
I would really recommend developing the ability to kind of recover and adapt when things just don't go as planned. I think failure or setbacks often derail us further than they need to. And I think it speaks to our abilities to work in these careers because I don't know, as a field biologist, rarely everything goes right. Academically in the lab, things for the most part do go well, but I feel like once I got out into the field, I had more things going wrong than I had going right. And so still being able to carry out the job in that and having those skills, and it's not always like, 1 + 1. It's really problem solving under stress and pressure and being able to do that. And I guess speaking to the career thing, the application, I would just, if you're wanting to go with the state or federal side of things, just start the process and fill out your profile on Cal Careers. If you want to go federal, it's usajobs.gov. If you even think that that's the route you want to go, just start it now. You'll avoid a lot of frustration and confusion when you need to apply?
Well, I think that's kind of we're out of time. I'm having so much fun. This has been the highlight of my week. I think my semester so far, this has been so much fun. I feel like we're just sitting in the living room having a conversation. I think maybe that's a good point to end out what Mike said about recover and adapt. I mean, how many of you in college were prepared for a pandemic? You know, did we say, oh, by the way, and when you get out about your second, third year, you know, there's going to be this pandemic, and then there's going to be these wildfires, and then, you know, all the crazy things that have happened in 2020, probably you know, how do you possibly prepare for that? And I think that's really good advice. There probably will be bumps along the road in your career journey, whether it's, you know, recessions or furloughs or layoffs or things we can't control, like the economy or pandemics and that kind of thing. So I think that's some really good advice to end on. You all have exemplified amazing grads from Fresno State. I personally am super proud of you. I feel like a mom listening to her kids, and you just touched my heart, that you're really doing unique, incredible things. And you all have very different majors, and you've landed in good places. And I think you're really good role models. I think for our students to see that went to Fresno State, they can be successful. You've done it, they can do it. And you've given them some really good advice today. So I encourage you out in the audience, reach out to these incredible people on LinkedIn or through the emails that they've shared, and do those informational interviews that Skylar was talking about. So I personally want to thank Peter, John, Mike, Skylar, Sierra, Cassie. You're phenomenal. And I appreciate that you took time out of your busy workday because you're all working. So thank goodness we all work from home, right? So it's been great. And I hope we can stay connected to you and do this again. So I personally want to thank you. And I thank the audience for being here and listening to this great webinar today. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Of course.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.